If you're a parent, you know the feeling, right? That endless cycle of running noses, coughs, fevers. It can feel like it just never stops. But what if there was a natural way to kind of support your kid's immune system, to help build up their resilience? Well, today, we're going to dive into the science behind a really fascinating compound called beta-glucan. We're going to ask the big question, could this actually be a real tool for helping kids stay healthier?
So let's just start with a number, 6 to 8. What do you think that is? Well, according to the research, that's the average number of colds a healthy kid gets every single year. Yeah. When you see that number, it really puts the whole problem into perspective, doesn't it? It's a huge disruption, not just for the kids, but for parents, for the whole family.
So why? Why are they stuck in this constant cycle of sickness? It's not just a string of bad luck, you know? There are some very specific biological reasons why kids are just so much more susceptible. Let's break down what's really happening. You know, the heart of the issue is really twofold. First off, a child's immune system is basically a work in progress. It's still learning, it's still maturing. And second, think about it. Kids in daycare or school are in the perfect environment for germs to just spread like wildfire. So you've got this combo of an underdeveloped immune system and super high exposure, and that makes them really vulnerable. And this isn't some small thing. It's a major reason for illness in young kids all over the world.
Okay, so this is where the story starts to shift a little. Because of this constant challenge to a kid's immune system, researchers have been on the hunt for ways to safely support their developing defenses. And one of the most promising things to come out of all that research is something called beta-glucan.
So what is this stuff? Basically, beta-glucan is a type of natural fiber. You find it in the cell walls of things like mushrooms, oats, and even baker's yeast. And it's that highly purified form specifically from baker's yeast that was used in the key children's studies we're about to get into. Now, here's the cool part. It's known as a biological response modifier. That's a fancy term, but it's super important. It means it's not just passive, it actually interacts with and modulates our immune system. It can change how it responds to threats.
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing to talk about what something is, but it's a whole other thing to prove it actually works, especially when we're talking about kids. So let's get to the good part and see what the human clinical trials have to say.
All right, let's dive into this evidence. And just to be clear, we're not talking about theories or studies in a petri dish here. We are going to look at what happened when real researchers gave beta-glucan to actual children in controlled scientific studies. And before we even look at the results, you got to know the quality of these studies. These weren't just thrown together, they were designed to be the absolute gold standard of medical research. They were randomized, double-blind, and placebo-controlled. All that means is that nobody, not the kids, not the parents, not even the researchers, knew who was getting the real beta-glucan and who was getting a fake pill. That gets rid of any bias and makes the data you get incredibly reliable.
Okay, so the first major finding from these top-tier trials is a really big one. To put it simply, the kids taking beta-glucan just got sick less often, period.
This chart just says it all. Look at this. In one 12-week study, right during cold and flu season, a whopping 85% of the kids in the placebo group got sick at least once. 85%. But look at the group taking a 35 milligram dose of beta-glucan every day. Only 32% got sick. I mean, that is a massive drop in the chances of a kid getting an infection. And the benefits didn't even stop there. For the kids who did end up getting sick, their illnesses were way less severe and much, much shorter. So the average length of a respiratory infection for the placebo group was almost 9 full days. But for the kids taking beta-glucan, it was only about 3 days. So they got sick less, and when they did get sick, they bounced back so much faster.
So how is this happening? What's the mechanism? Well, the next piece of the puzzle points to our body's first line of defense, our mucosal immune system. You know, the system in our nose, our mouth, our throat that acts like a bouncer at a club, keeping germs out.
This data here is incredible. It shows what happened inside the saliva of these kids. Researchers measured these key antibodies. They're like the immune system's frontline soldiers. Now get this, in the placebo group, over 30 days, the levels of these protective soldiers actually went down. But in the beta-glucan group, they skyrocketed. Immunoglobulin A, or IgA, that's the main antibody protecting those mucosal surfaces, it went up by 74%. This suggests that beta-glucan is actively beefing up security at the very first barrier germs have to face.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The researchers themselves were crystal clear about what this meant. This quote from one of the key studies says it all. The beta-glucan strongly stimulated the mucosal immunity of these children.
So, beyond just having fewer colds, the trial started to notice a ripple effect. It led to these broad improvements in the kids' overall quality of life.
And this is where the science really hits home for families, right? The kids taking beta-glucan missed fewer days of daycare. Their doctors ended up prescribing antibiotics less often. And in some studies on kids who had chronic respiratory problems, they even saw big improvements in physical endurance. I mean, these are real, tangible benefits that make a huge difference in day-to-day life.
Okay, so we've seen what it does. Now let's get to the really cool part, how it works. How can a simple fiber from yeast have such a huge effect on the immune system?
Probably the best way to wrap your head around this is to think of it like a boot camp for your immune system. See, beta-glucan doesn't just artificially boost or overstimulate everything. Instead, it primes it. It gets it ready for a real fight. There's actually a scientific name for this. It's called trained immunity.
So here's how the training works. When beta-glucan gets to your gut, special immune cells there recognize the structure. They see it as something foreign, kind of like a fungus or yeast, but a harmless one. This recognition is like a drill sergeant blowing a whistle. It wakes up your innate immune cells, your body's first responders. Now, this doesn't cause inflammation or make you feel sick. It just primes them. It makes them better at their job. So your immune system isn't going haywire. It's just in this state of balanced readiness, totally prepared to respond faster and better when a real bad guy shows up.
So, after looking at all this evidence from these really high-quality human trials, what's the big picture here? What's the takeaway?
Let's just quickly recap the crucial points. The evidence from multiple human studies in kids is pretty darn consistent. Beta-glucan can seriously reduce how often kids get sick and for how long. How? By strengthening that first line of defense and by safely training immune cells to be more effective. And what's really important is that it does this without sending the system into overdrive, promoting a balanced state of readiness instead. So I think the bottom line is this. For parents who are looking for evidence-based, natural options, beta-glucan really stands out. The research strongly suggests it's a safe and really promising tool to help build a child's immune resilience, helping them get through that tough period of getting sick all the time a lot more easily.
And that kind of leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought, doesn't it? We teach our kids to wash their hands to prevent illness. It's just fundamental. Well, based on this growing pile of evidence, maybe one day, proactively training their immune systems with safe, natural compounds like beta-glucan could become just as routine. A powerful idea to think about.